This is the morning brief from the Economic Times.
This is Jangzapali from Jalalabad of Afghanistan. Everywhere are Taliban. We saw lots of Taliban in the city. The markets are closed. No one is going outside, and everyone is thinking about their future, and they are afraid what will happen. My daughter said to me, "Please, Daddy, leave Afghanistan. I cannot wear hijab. I cannot wear burqa. Taliban want to force us to get us to wear burqa."
Jangzapali means victim of war. He doesn't want to give us his real name, fearing he will be persecuted by the Taliban who have taken over Afghanistan. The brave Jangzapali in Jalalabad is a teacher who, like millions of Afghans, is waiting for Taliban's orders that will alter their fate. He told us he feels abandoned and questions why the global powers are silent.
We didn't expect that they will come so fast, but as our president said that I did not want to be war. People are happy that it happened peacefully, but they are upset. No one can tolerate Taliban. I don't know why the world is silent, why the human rights is silent, and why no one showed any reaction.
How are you and your family doing? Have you all taken shelter somewhere?
No, we are home. We are home. Just our family said, don't go outside. Don't take your car outside. Just be careful. We do not go outside.
The Talibanis who have entered your cities, have they already started issuing orders?
Yeah, Taliban are confused themselves. They did not expect that they will come to Afghanistan, enter to Afghanistan easily. And lots of them are very youngster. When they face with us, like educated people, they become under pressure. They cannot talk even in front of us, but they can talk by force, by that they have gun, that they have weapons. So they are not stable. Once they get stable, so they will bring Sharia law.
How are you all keeping your morale up? What are you telling your family members, your children? How do you keep them occupied in days like this?
Yeah, in these days, my sister is also calling, my mother is also calling, my father. He said that be careful, don't share something in Facebook against Taliban. They will kill you or they will do like. So everyone is frustrated and they do not want us to be against Taliban. I'm praying for God that please bring peace to Afghanistan, bring peace to Afghanistan. Now I'm 34 years old and we haven't seen peace in 34 years. Sometimes I say, I wish I would have died not to see Taliban.
Hello?
Yeah, it says reconnecting.
Hello? Taliban, the feared group which wreaked havoc across Afghanistan in the 90s with their rigid diktats, became the focus point of the world in the wake of the September 11 World Trade Center attacks in New York in 2011.
Hi, babe.
That Taliban is back. Over the last few days, the world watched in horror as US troops left the Afghan soil following President Joe Biden's return orders. And parallelly, the Taliban forces took over the country once again.
Afghans are thronging to Kabul's airport, desperate to get on planes and leave the country at any cost.
By Islam hardliners. Without the support of US military, the government has collapsed. The president has fled the country, leaving millions to bear with the crisis, and now Kabul streets are patrolled by Taliban fighters.
There is fear, confusion, and anger as the sun rises on Tuesday morning in Kabul. And now so many questions about how the Taliban was able to take over the entire country and this quickly. Stunning scenes at Kabul's airport today. Residents so desperate to leave, they are risking it all, including their lives in some cases.
Millions of Afghans are trying to flee their country, and some will seek shelter in India, which is about 1800 kilometers away from Afghanistan. Will Jangzapali be one of them? What will be India's diplomatic, military, economic stance in the subcontinent now with the Taliban-led government in the neighborhood, along with Pakistan and China? I'm Devina Sengupta and you're listening to The Morning Brief. To understand a new set of challenges in front of India, I spoke to Pranab Dhal Samanta, who along with his team has been tracking developments in Afghanistan and its fallout in India for the Economic Times. Thank you for being with us on The Morning Brief. Pranab, this is a big geopolitical crisis right now. And what is India's next step in its relations with Afghanistan?
There are two aspects to your question. One are people in Afghanistan. I think that's a very important aspect because unfortunately we all remember the place but not the people. And the people are essentially who will suffer the most. They will become refugees overnight. We are seeing of heart-wrenching stories pouring out from all directions. So from that perspective, it is a humanitarian disaster for the entire world. And I'm sure that India will open its arms to Afghans who are fleeing to India to the extent possible. Now, we have given long-term visas to the minority communities over there in the past. There are a lot of Afghans who are staying here, but in the last few days and weeks, we have seen that numbers swell. Many of them usually come for medical treatment, studies, go back. But now you will have to accommodate them. A lot of the refugee crisis may move to Central Asian neighbors like Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Iran. Iran might allow them to even press ahead and go towards Turkey. So you are seeing a refugee crisis of a proportion where one country's policy is not going to determine the course of action. The larger refugee question will have to be addressed at a global scale. As far as the other second aspect about the policy angle is concerned, I think it's a bit too early to say because it will all be determined by the way the kind of new government shapes up in Kabul. But as of now, I think we should watch the UN space. At the end of the day, the big political question is, will you give legitimacy to a Taliban-led government, which has frankly come there by use of force?
You mentioned an interesting point that it all depends about how much of legitimacy, if at all, would countries like India give to the Taliban-led regime out there. We had not given or accepted the Taliban regime earlier as well. And this comes at a time when China has given its nod to the regime and Pakistan as well. I mean, we heard their Prime Minister Imran Khan say that they are okay with the Taliban-led government.
जब आप ज़हनी गुलाम बनते हैं तो ये याद रखें असल गुलामी से ज़्यादा बुरी ज़हनी गुलामी है। ज़हनी गुलामी की ज़ंजीरें तोड़ना ज़्यादा मुश्किल होता है। जो अभी अफगानिस्तान में गुलामी की ज़ंजीरें तो तोड़ दी उन्होंने, लेकिन जो ज़हनी गुलामी की ज़ंजीरें वो नहीं टूटती।
The Afghan Taliban have repeatedly expressed their hope to develop good relations with China, that they look forward to China's participation in the reconstruction and development of Afghanistan. And we will never allow any forces to use Afghan territory to endanger China. We welcome this.
Absolutely. I mean, India is in a very difficult spot because you see, the Pakistanis also would want to have the Americans on board. So, but the one country which the Pakistanis don't want in the picture is India. I'm certain the Chinese also wouldn't want India in the picture either. So even if, and I know for a fact that we may have developed certain assets in Afghanistan and access to members who may be part of the new government, but they will be under constant pressure from Pakistan not to do business with India.
When you mentioned trade, way past we used to have the Kabuliwalas, and since then, of course, things have changed a lot for Afghanistan and India. There is a fear of rise of opium trade again, which again was used a lot in the earlier regime of Taliban to finance terrorism.
Among the greatest challenges facing modern Afghanistan are the deeply sown seeds of the opium trade. Despite a nationwide crackdown, the country is struggling to kick the habit and remains a world leader in poppy production.
If you could throw some light on what is the kind of trade relations we have with Afghanistan, and will they all go kaput right now? And is there a fear that opium trade is going to rise?
See, even with the current regime, even in the past 5-10 years, this trade with Afghanistan, it would make sense if Pakistan would allow goods from India to reach Afghanistan and allow Afghan goods to traverse Pakistani territory and reach India. The point is, for a long time, they did not allow Pakistani territory to be used. Otherwise, the distance from Kabul to Delhi is not much. Second, when there was pressure, they allowed Afghan goods to reach the Indian border, but never allowed Indian goods to actually reach Afghanistan, which is why India invested a lot in aviation. That is how we would actually get some business going. But you know how it is with aviation, you cannot do essentials, which is why we were also building this road, which we built the road actually, and then we were waiting for the port to come up in Iran, Chabahar port, so that the Afghans on the, what would be the western Afghanistan could actually access the Iranian port of Chabahar, and from there they could come down to Mumbai. Now, that project is also because the road which India had built in Western Afghanistan, known as the Zaranj-Dalaram Road, has come under Taliban control. It's interesting to note that the first city which the Taliban took control of was actually Zaranj, which is there where the Indian road was. So these are all signals which tell you that, all the efforts which India had made to establish connectivity and trade with Afghanistan has been cut. On the question of opium trade, I think the first impact, the usual opium route is through the Central Asian countries or through the Gulf. I think the Russians are very sensitive on opium trade. So we'll have to wait and watch, because that will be the one policy agenda the Russians will bring on the table to curtail opium trade.
The fear of terrorism, because another major focus for India is said that they are not funding the terror camps, but then allegations arrive even from the Afghans who we spoke with, said how Pakistan is funding the terror camps. And what are the implications then for Kashmir? Where does that battle stand right now, given the new development?
So two things are important over here. One is the rise of what we call the Pakistan Taliban. Okay, the Pakistan Taliban has been training its guns on Pakistan itself. That wasn't the case earlier. So the Pakistan Taliban, however, recognizes the spiritual leadership of the al-Mu'min of the Taliban, the Afghan Taliban, essentially the Mullah Umar and others. And so whether the Afghan Taliban, given its spiritual sort of overarching thing over the Taliban movement, can influence the Pakistan Taliban to stop acting against Pakistan. Second, if it can achieve that, it will also, the Pakistan state, the Pakistan deep state, will align to now show greater muscle on Kashmir. Why? Not just because there is Taliban, because the Americans have actually ceded space. So the Pakistanis are now emboldened politically. So Imran Khan and the deep state see a common point here. In the short term and medium term, we should expect both political pressure and terrorism to rise in Kashmir, and not just Kashmir, it could even be in the hinterland.
When you are talking to your government sources, what are they saying? What kind of discussions are they having, within the government, and what kind of discussions are we having in the global level? How are we pushing our agenda? Because UN, shockingly, is very, very reserved in its comments towards what is happening right now in Afghanistan.
It's a rescue act, right? So there is nothing to... there's no big, ambitious move to be made over here. So in that backdrop, I think the first baby step would be the whole legitimacy question. Problematize the legitimacy issue would be a policy I would wager that the Indian government would sort of follow. Remember, the kind of backlash Joe Biden is facing in the United States is also at least going to help in getting the Americans to understand that, okay, you let them walk in, but don't legitimize them.
Back in January, US President Joe Biden proudly proclaimed America is back on the world stage after taking White House. Now, in less than 5 months, chaos and confusion has gripped over his presidency.
But despite the backlash, Biden stood his ground.
I stand squarely behind my decision. After 20 years, I've learned the hard way that there was never a good time to withdraw U.S. forces.
Pranab told me that preventing a global refugee crisis will be on the agenda of all governments, including India. Countries reeling under the Syrian refugee crisis are looking at millions of Afghans coming in, and therefore drastic measures that will create more fraction in Afghanistan will be avoided.
As far as India is concerned, it will have to look for sub-regional partners in Central Asia, in West Asia, namely Iran, and look for partners in Central Europe and work on the Americans and the Russians to nuance their position on the whole legitimacy question about who takes charge in Kabul. If we are able to drag this a little longer, that would, I think, give us some space. And once that space is created, other options may emerge.
While governments calibrate their options, some Afghans like Faisal Siddiqui left their country, home, family in 2014 when Taliban started making a comeback. Today, Faisal is studying and working in Delhi, but recounts the horrors he had just about escaped.
These cruel people killed my sister and have a lot of security problem with my family. Like my mom was not secure because she was doing job in there as she was a doctor. So that's why we just flew to India.
I am so sorry to hear that. Faisal, you have gone through trauma that most of us can't even imagine. And we are extremely sorry to hear this. When was the last time you went to Afghanistan? Did you manage to even visit Afghanistan after you came in 2014?
After 2014, no, never went to Afghanistan because the fear, the problems that we had faced, everything. So that totally vanished all hopes and returning ideas to return back to country. Afghanistan is our birthplace. Definitely, we have everyone. I have my uncle and my aunt, but unfortunately, we do not have any contact with them since we left Afghanistan till now. We hope for better life for them. Maybe they are safe and secure, just like my other countrymates.
Since coming to India, Faisal, along with his fellow Afghan friends, would see pictures on social media of the country participating on the global platform. But now their hopes stand dashed as he sees more refugees escaping his country just like him.
I just met today two ladies. I don't know them. They were from homeland Afghanistan. They flew yesterday from Kabul. They just came yesterday to India yesterday. I saw their eyes. They were totally red. I believe they were crying. I shared to them that you cried a lot, right? Then she didn't say anything. She just started to cry. I understood how fear they have, how much pain they have inside. That even I didn't talk with them, but when I said you cried, they just started to cry and yell and shout like, yeah, we cry for our country. It's like totally disaster, and we don't know how this even happened.
Faisal escaped to India with his mother, who was a doctor in Kabul. Today, like so many who have faced war, they have decided to make India their home.
There was nothing for my mom to lose more. So then she just decide to leave the country because that was the only last option left to her. So right now she says that my only hope, my word, my eyes are these my children's. If they are not secure, they are not in a condition to live. So how can I just live for my own self? I gave up everything to my children, even my country, my past, my childhood, everything I gave him up for the life of my children. So that's why she decided to come to India and never get back to country.
Afghanistan, a country that has seen global powers push their agendas on her soil for centuries. Each time she was left bereft till the next hunt for her began. The Taliban, in their first press conference since taking over Afghanistan, have said that they will allow normalcy, but according to the acceptable norms of the Sharia law.
We have pardoned anyone, all those who had fought against us. We don't want a repeat of war. We want to do away with the factors of conflict. So the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan does not have any conflict with anybody. We want the fighting to end. The Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan is committed to the rights of women within the framework of Sharia.
In the coming days, it will be seen if the new image of the Taliban will be accepted by the Afghans. And if not, then will the world forget about her and we turn our backs on the Afghan girl again? I'm Devina Sengupta and you are listening to the Morning Brief. Thank you Jangzapali and Faisal for giving us your time despite all the upheaval that you are going through. And Pranab, thank you for putting the impact of this geopolitical crisis in perspective. This episode was edited and coordinated by Bhavya Dilip Kumar. I hope you enjoyed listening to the episode. Do send in your feedback to the Morning Brief at timesgroup.com and share the episode on your social media networks. The Morning Brief airs every Tuesday, Thursday and Friday. Thank you for listening and have a nice day ahead. All clips used in the episode belong to their original respective owners. Credits mentioned in the description below.